So this is primarily a live demonstration. I do have a couple slides, but I'm going to be showing you Dockstore and Seven Bridges both live in my web browser. But I want to show you some of the ways you can connect Dockstore and Seven Bridges. My name is Dave Roberson. I'm a community associate at Seven Bridges. So first off, I want to thank Ash for doing such a great presentation. And I learned a lot about FAIR workflows and that it applies not only to data, but also workflows, which we should treat as important scientific objects. And this is something we're trying to promote in the ecosystem very much. So one of the groups I've been working with is the BioData Catalyst Fellows, and they are highly encouraged to publish their workflows, their pipelines at the end of their project to increase reproducibility, and they're encouraged to publish those to Dockstore. So Dockstore has several organizations. One of them is NHLBI BioData Catalyst, and in that there are the outputs of several research projects, and I'll focus on one of them. But I just want to make you aware of that. And I'm going to be focusing on Common Workflow Language, or CWL. Now, that said, there are other workflow specifications that Ash already mentioned, such as WDL and Nextflow, both of which can now be run on BioData Catalyst powered by Seven Bridges in an early access manner. So if you do want to go ahead and test this feature out, please email Tony or myself, and we can give you a specific flag on your user ID to be able to test that. But that said, so I'm going to talk about CWL right now. So I'm really big on visualizations, and there is a CWL DAG viewer on Dockstore, which you can see on the left, and as well on Seven Bridges. So these represent this exact same workflow, the exact same workflow object. They're just visualized a little bit differently. And we're going to dive deeper into this, but this is work that was done by Dr. Randy Johnson, who was she was a BioData Catalyst Fellow. She's from the University of Colorado, and her project was to use omics data, in particular, I think RNA expression data, to help increase the validity and power of association tests. Okay, the difference here, so this is viewable for any CWL workflow on Dockstore. After you import it, you'll be able to see this view of the workflow and actually use a WYSIWYG editor called Web Composer to edit the workflow, make your changes, and then at the end of your project, if it was significantly novel enough and you want to share it, especially if you used it for publishing, you could push it back to Dockstore and do everything Ash just described. Okay. So let's talk about importing and exporting of CWL workflows via Seven Bridges. It's entirely, there's multiple ways to do it, but I'm going to just highlight the most obvious, which is using the graphical user interface. So on the left side, you have, this is actually a section of the Dockstore registry after you click on a specific CWL workflow, and you'll notice that there's multiple platforms that it's saying you can launch with. Today, we're focused on NHLBI BioData Catalyst powered by Seven Bridges, and it gives you that option right there in the middle. So if you're importing, you go to Dockstore, find the workflow you're interested in, click on launch, and then if you're already logged on to BioData Catalyst, it'll say, what project do you want to send this workflow to? Okay, so that's, and I'll demonstrate that. And the opposite is, if you're in the Web Composer, the workflow editor on Seven Bridges, you can click on the More Actions button, and you can export the workflow as a text file in either JSON or YAML format. So this will be a CWL specification. At that point, you can upload it to your GitHub repository and do everything that was just outlined, which I think is super important. It'll give you a superior level of version control and then you'll be able to share that on Dockstore. So let's go ahead and do some of this live. So I'm already logged on. So I'm already logged on to BioData Catalyst powered by 7 Bridges, and I made a project just for this called PredictScan, which is the workflow that Dr. Randy Johnson created, which is based on some previous work. But the great thing about Dockstore and 7 Bridges is you can, you have these URLs that you can bookmark and put places. So here is the bookmark for PredictScan. I've already opened it in this tab. And let me just go back out for 1 second. So I'm already in Dockstore also. So I have 2 tabs, BioData Catalyst and Dockstore open. I've actually made my account, and maybe Ash can tell us later. I made my account by linking my GitHub ID, but there are multiple ways you can make an account. And maybe we can talk about that during the questions section. But under organizations, there's 44 organizations, including the Broad, Galaxy, Santa Cruz. But down here, there's NHLBI BioData Catalyst. If you click on the organization, you'll see a variety of collections. Some of these are made by, the TopMed Data Coordinating Center, and some of them are created by the end result of fellowship. So I want to highlight PredictScan. So there's 2 workflows here. So one is creating the database, which actually fits a model based on omics data and some other factors. And then you can use that model in an association test. So you would actually need both of these workflows. I'm skipping over a bunch of the science because I can't explain it very well, but you can read the introduction here, which talks about where the algorithm initially came from, which is another project. So let's go ahead and look at the first one here. So we'll click View, and because it's CWL, Dockstore knows that it can be launched with platforms that support CWL. So you have a list of these over here on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and click on BioData Catalyst, which opens up a new tab, and I'm already logged on to BioData Catalyst, and it says, your app is ready to be imported. What project would you like to import it into? I'm going to go ahead and click on the PredictScan project I was already in. And since I've already done this, it's saying, you have to create a unique URL. So I'll just say -3 and click import. And then, so, I was on my dashboard, and now I flip to the apps and I'll have this workflow. So it's actually multiple apps that are inside this workflow. And it's a bit more complicated than the original one I showed you. So this is actually going to go scatter and operate by chromosome and look at all the genotypes and fit a model and export that model as a database. So this is a WYSIWYG editor. So if I wanted to move these nodes around, or if I wanted to hard code specific parameters, I could go ahead and do that. So such as tissue name. I mean, you can do these at runtime, but if you're going to publish, I would recommend actually hard coding these, so someone could reproduce your work very, very easily. But I'll just go ahead and pick a random thing to change here, and then save. And then, so there's version control built into this. So you have multiple layers of control. So you have it here, you'll have it on GitHub, and that'll be mirrored on Dockstore. So I'll just say I changed a specific parameter. Okay. And then I click export. So I can export as YAML or JSON. And there's a command line version of this, which is a little bit more complex. We don't have time for that in this demo, but if you're interested, you can do this all using API and a command line tool called SBPack. So you see I downloaded the CWL file to my desktop. Now I want to go to GitHub. So A lot of the fellows and a lot of the researchers, I mean, this is sort of like new ground, new territory for them. They may have not worked with GitHub before. So they're kind of, the great thing about Dockstore is it's teaching you about, proper software development technique as you're using it. So I helped create this CWL-apps Docker group. And that's where a lot of the fellows are putting their CWL tools, but you can, of course, create your own repository as well. So we have one called demo, and what Ash demonstrated is a bit more complex than this, which I would recommend, reading that through that and go and creating the Dockstore YAML to have better automatic syncing. But it all starts with simply just uploading your workflow file and committing the changes. Then, of course, we'd recommend when you're finished creating a release. So this is what the CWL looks like here. So another interesting thing is with the command line version of this flow using SBPack, it'll actually decompose your workflow into its individual parts, which I actually will demonstrate here. So this is the predict scan tools section. So even if you had a really complex workflow, it will separate and unpack them into the individual files. So here's all the different pieces of software that were used. And of course, this is helpful because suppose someone wants to reuse part of your workflow, they could just grab the individual parts. So that's all I want to show you so far today. But of course, there's, I'm free to meet with you during open office hours to describe your specific use case.